我去，掉进去。
This is the China century. No, it's actually just a recent sinkhole in Shanghai. They discovered this collapse during a subway construction at the construction site for the Qixin Road subway station in the Jiamin line in Shanghai. Don't worry though, the China Century stable can easily help to patch this up. Wow, it's so shocking. Who knew that some drone shows, dancing robots, high-speed rail, and LED can simply fix anything in China? And this is also the China century. This is also the China century too.
如果提前知道这一世会是这样，你还愿意来吗？
手机不要拿钱。
收了。为啥不拍？合法拍摄，我操我。
This is, well, the Chinese century in a nutshell.
妈呀，你看，哎呦，这种注射怎么助人？
刚刚我把那个窗帘拆掉了，都老化掉了吧？这些，我刚把它拆下来，这样子。这个风扇呢，还是蛮脏的。你看他们的地板呢？
今天中午吃炸鸡。
本来想请他们吃整只的，但33乘25的话就超出我公司的预算了。一个星期至少有5天是吃洋芋的，所以我想偶尔吃一次应该没事吧。
Outside of the 4 to 5 major cities in China, most of China is actually far behind the rest of the world. And the truth is, the Chinese century might never come. Instead, it's China's misery. Now, the reason why tofu drag exists in China, partly, as I always say, is a moral issue and a problem. Another part of it is that people are not responsible because they're paid so less to work. It's 4 a.m. in the busiest job market in Xi'an, and workers line up asking for day jobs that they can work for, usually in construction or labor work, and this type of day pay, which they will get cash at the end of the day. These kind of job markets exist in pretty much all big cities and medium-sized cities in China. Here's one in Beijing.
北京有个地方叫马驹桥。只因为一句话，我想亲眼看这群活在底层的生活艺术家。最便宜的床位1天20元，最贵的快餐不超过10块钱，各种日结工的招聘在这里随处可见。所以在这个地方活下去不难，但这个地方却有这么一群人，他们不与生活反抗，更愿意选择流浪。我在这里观察了3天，只想看看最真实的人间。当马驹桥的太阳升起，这里会出现2批人。第一种是努力生活的，他们一定会按时的吃个早饭，他们的目标很简单，今天一定要找到一个活干。所以有老板过来，他们蜂拥而上。
干啥？我老板，我干。
他们在努力的介绍自己，他们在讨价还价，只为了多赚10块钱。他们小心翼翼的拿起电话给干过活的老板拨打。
Now, they're paid barely anything by the standards of regular work, and obviously this is for people who moved far away from their hometown to come and seek a job or an opportunity. And so imagine the responsible feelings of these workers, probably not as good as relatively to a long-term, stable, permanent employee. Which obviously means the construction quality is really not the primary consideration. And in many cases, that's why you have a lot of these tofu drag as well. So you rarely hear about the misery of Chinese people because, well, they rarely make it out onto this type of information, at least, make it to the English-speaking space. Things that published outside of China, most of it is actually efforts from the CCP and their propaganda machine. Fortunately, because I collect these videos and I tell stories about them, I translate them, that you get to hear some of this. Here's a video of workers sleeping outside during lunch in cold winter weather. Chinese propaganda will make you believe that China is literally the best country in the world with no flaws. And everywhere you go, it looks like the city center of Shanghai or city center of Beijing, and that everything pretty much is as you see in those videos. Now, I was recently troubled by this photo, and it's actually the reason behind it. A person posted a takeout box full of rice and just 3 pieces of meat, and it was banned due to content promoting or flaunting wealth. Well, since when is 3 pieces of meat considered rich or wealthy? Obviously, this is pretty funny. So I thought, what happens if you posted a photo of a steak dinner? Corruption? Graft charges? You know, that's a lot of meat. But that's just the censorship, right? This one here too, you have a pylon that looks like the color of Winnie the Pooh, the bear. Obviously, this is like a decade-old joke at this point that Winnie the Pooh looks like Xi Jinping. And I'm surprised that this censorship point is still alive and well. So you see how the information environment is that a lot of this stuff doesn't make it out onto the rest of the platforms outside of China. The ones that do get posted, they're either quickly deleted or simply people don't look for them or they're hard to find. And what's the reason for posting it on X or other social media, right? In particular, for most Chinese people, no reason. So the outward propaganda for English speakers, the ones that people get to hear about China, is always to say the economy is doing well. Well, recently people have filmed empty high-speed rail cars in videos, but packed slower train cars as millions are heading home for the holiday.
这个车厢就我和我乘我2个人。
严重超员，为确保大家安全，买短乘长的旅客、不票旅客、未补票的旅客，请在金华站下车。
Now, the spending and consumer downgrade in China is real, and this is the Chinese New Year, right? It's the Spring Festival season, so people travel, and if you're seeing a lot of these train cars empty, it's not a direct indicator, but it is I would say, a circumstantial piece of evidence that people are rather spending more time to travel in a slower speed train than to spend more money and travel faster. And also, this speaks volume to that so-called China century, because their economy isn't really doing well. Now, before I continue, I just want to talk to you guys about this initiative I'm involved in. It's called Escaping the Great Firewall in China. And how it works is for every $2,000, there can be 100 links generated to provide tens of thousands of people in China free unfettered access outside of the firewall. And they don't have to do much. All they have to do is click the link and they're through. And this provides a great way, a very secure way to access free information without the censorship, which is essentially the core aspect of breaking down the CCP's lies. And in doing so, you're helping tens of thousands of people to get those access, and that's, I think, the most important part for them to see a future and a bright light outside of China. Now, to my surprise, and maybe yours too, less than 1% of people in China actually knows how to use VPNs. And so that means there's plenty of people out there who all they need is an easy way to access, and the rest obviously can speak for themselves. So once they're outside of the firewall, they can freely post, they can make comments, engage and interact, and understand, even have dialogues and discussions with people outside of China to understand where is this void of information and what they need to fill it with. And so I think it's super important. It's a great mission. I'm super behind on it. I hope you guys can join me in this effort and help contribute by donating. And the link will be in the description. And yeah, thank you so much for those who have already donated to us in the previous campaign. So thank you again, and let's get back to the video. This is also the China century. Another point of propaganda is how the CCP takes care of its people, and that they don't have any issues getting food, basic needs met, unlike people in the United States. And this lady here, she owns some land, and in 2002, she responded to the national call for the Grain for Green project, which essentially is planting trees on farmlands, right? So she planted 300 acres of poplar trees on her own land. But by 2024, the local government had designated that these 300 acres of trees as part of a national protected area, specifically prohibiting any felling, which provided by Ms. Wang with no compensation whatsoever, so she effectively lost the land. And the years of money, dedication, sweat, manpower, and all of the time that she invested ultimately essentially just made wedding clothes for the government, as she says. Now, she's in front of the camera, she became extremely emotional, cried out in grievance saying that you people in the government are worse than bandits.
你这不是抢我们的东西吗？你这都比土匪都土匪，土匪还有刮不抢的。我一个寡妇领2个不懂事的孩子，你说我这属地连前后左右都有补偿，就我没有。
And so this whole talk about Chinese people owning land, it's really ridiculous because the government really owns everything. Now, Because this poor condition of like people living in these bad places, that's most of China actually. The upstairs neighbor in this house just pours water down straight into this person's window or kitchen, and you see that it looks like it's pouring heavy rain, but it's actually just water from upstairs, and it damaged their water heater already, had to be replaced. So this is the type of housing that still exists in China. Not everywhere in China is like skyscrapers. And speaking of taking care of people, here's a video, a woman picking garbage on the street, and the man filming bought her a whole bag of dough sticks to eat, fried dough sticks, because she's basically picking garbage to try to find something to eat. And in this video, an elderly spent 30 years of his life repairing bridges, fixing roads, digging wells, and building dams for the country, all without receiving any payment. And now, when the old man is dressed in tattered clothes, destitute and penniless, with nothing to his name except a single certificate of honor that was issued by the government. Well, at least I guess that's the only thing kept clean and pristine, even though that's probably the dirtiest thing that this person owns. Everything else is at least honorable. But the point, I think, is that this type of story never makes it to the receiving area of an English speaker or somebody who doesn't live in China, because it's not beneficial, right? Similarly, this old man here survived bullets, but seems to not be able to stop the wind leaking through his house, if you can even call it a house. And this viral video was in China. This video featured a 95-year-old veteran who fought in the Korean War for the CCP, living alone in a house with bare walls and wind leaking from all sides. And the old man usually eats moldy rice and tofu, unable to afford fresh meat or vegetables. And in this video, similarly, an old lady lives in a similar situation. There's no egg to speak of, and she can't afford meat. And so all she can cook up was a plain bowl of noodles for this guest that went into her house.
没有鸡蛋，现在不下了，扔了，不下了。
有肉吧？给我放点肉吧。
哎，没有，我管吃不起肉啊。我吃的我不要了，现在我吃的。
真香，这面条真好吃。
And we were just talking about skyscrapers. Here in Nanking, this is a landmark, 368-meter tall, 3-tower connected building. This skyscraper cost tens of billions to build, yuan obviously, and it's a landmark of Nanking. And a blogger went inside the building to take a look, and he found that the interior was deserted. Some floors only had 2 or 3 companies moving in or working inside, while others were completely empty, unfinished, bare shells. So when you see those videos of the LED lights, you really have to consider the vacancy rate. You really have to consider, what is the purpose? Is it literally an LED beam tower, or is it an actual functioning building with purpose, right? Because a lot of these are just phase projects. They look great on the outside, if we can even call that great. But many of these skyscrapers, they're glamorous and impressive, yet on the inside, they're essentially just, well, unfinished or not occupied at all. And so that's really the reality of China. It's a shell that anyone who has to spend a little bit of effort to look within can easily find that it's really hiding a lot of things. But it's also easy to fool people who don't really necessarily have the time to investigate into that. And obviously there's a language barrier as well. So I hope I can continue to serve as that bridge between the gaps of the 2 sides and bring you some real information from China. So thank you so much for watching. And if you are watching on China Insider, please subscribe to our new channels, David on China and David Zhang 360. YouTube has demonetized our channel, so much appreciated if you continue to support our work on the new channels. And just search them on YouTube, no space, David on China or David Zhang 360, or you can just use the link in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.